Hello, welcome to She Knows Me with Rosie, where we cover all things weight loss, health and wellness, specializing in plant-based weight loss for women. And today we're talking about a very controversial topic, and that is gluten and why not everybody reacts the same way to it. There is so much to cover regarding gluten, so I've broken it up into 3 different categories. So we're once again doing like a 3-part series, just because there is too much to cover and it's such a hot topic right now. There's a lot to go through. We are going to be covering 3 divisions and severities of a reaction. We are going to be covering what is gluten, WTF, gluten, and then we're going to be chatting about an allergy versus a sensitivity. And then lastly, just digesting gluten-containing foods. We're going to start off with the 3 ranges of severity, so let's just split them up into 3 divisions. So firstly, we have our wheat allergy, we have celiac, and then we have non-celiac gluten sensitivity. So we're going to call that NCGS. Food allergy to wheat is caused by the immune system having an overactive response against wheat protein. This response is immediate within 4 hours of ingestion, resulting in symptoms classic to food allergies such as hives, swelling of skin, coughing, sometimes vomiting, and drop in blood pressure. You kind of do know who you are if you have a wheat allergy. Inheritary genetic disease, where eating food containing gluten leads to inflammation and damage of the small intestine lining and impairs intestinal function. The villi in the small intestine is damaged and you don't properly absorb nutrition. Intestinal symptoms are bloating, gas, diarrhea, cramping, and even heartburn. Non-intestinal symptoms are joint pain, malnutrition, osteoporosis, fatigue, depression, and infertility issues. Okay, that takes me to non-celiac gluten sensitivity. I feel like it's the most difficult word on earth to say right now. These are people who experience symptoms mentioned such as bloat, gas, cramping, and heartburn, diarrhea, joint pain, fatigue, brain fog, headaches, but don't test positive for celiac. But when gluten is removed from the diet, these symptoms resolve. You also kind of do know who you are if you are this person with non-celiac gluten sensitivity. And the next thing we're going to cover is what is an allergy versus a sensitivity. So that's also like a very gray area, because people chuck I'm allergic to this or I'm sensitive to this in conversation all the time, but there's a real difference between the two. So let's just quickly cover what is what. Food allergy versus food sensitivity. What is a food allergy? When the immune system sees a certain food as harmful and reacts by attacking the food and releasing histamine and other chemicals, triggering symptoms. And the symptoms are hives, shortness of breath, itching, rash, swelling, tingling, nausea, vomiting. When do they appear? Immediately or up to a couple of hours after digesting the food. The most common allergies: peanuts, soy, fish, shellfish, and dairy. Okay, then that's now your allergies. That's everything, all things allergies. So allergies versus sensitivity. So let's get into what is a food sensitivity. Sensitivity develops at any age, and 90% of the population suffers from food sensitivities. What is a food sensitivity? Where individual components of food cannot be properly processed and assimilated by the digestive system. Usually, this is less serious and includes more symptoms. Symptoms being chronic fatigue, weight gain, stubborn weight loss, acne, migraines, bloating, gas, mood swings, brain fog, etc. When do they appear? Delayed response up to 72 hours after consuming. The most common sensitivities are wheat, gluten, dairy, specific fruits and vegetables, and then corn. But what is gluten even? Let's just explain and understand what gluten actually is. Let's start at a point. A food item is composed of different macronutrients, so that'll be protein, fats, and carbohydrates. We have chatted a bit about that. Keep that in mind as we're focusing on gluten, the protein in certain grains. Yes, gluten is the protein in certain grains, and just as the word explains, glue, it is the sticky texture that we love to hate in breads, pastas, baked goods that gives us that consistency that we mad about. Now that we know exactly what gluten is, what happens when we actually digest gluten in the body? I have to stress the fact that every single person has a different reaction to gluten, And if you're not one of the severe cases of a wheat allergy and celiac, for this video we are focusing on non-celiac gluten sensitivities and the ranges that you can have within that category. Let's chat about when you digest gluten often and the reactions you have within the body. You consume gluten-containing foods into your body, and that is actually one of the things that your body cannot properly process. You either have an immediate reaction or you have a prolonged reaction. If gluten is consumed often, it could contribute to leaky gut, but that's like a tired topic on its own. So we'll be covering that more in part 2. But if you do have like the prolonged symptoms show itself, this can take up to 72 hours. So let's just think of the timeline of when you've had your bread maybe on a Wednesday and you feel Friday afternoon, Friday evening, you don't feel great, or the Saturday morning you don't feel great, and you think yourself, it must be that one little thing that I had last night. Trace it back. Just think of your timeline. It's so long. People can't even remember what they had for breakfast, never mind 3 days ago. Okay, so in that timeline, also think about possible symptoms that you might have. So if you're gassy, if you bloat, if you have a bit of an upset stomach, there's all digestive kind of symptoms. And then if you have a bit of a headache, brain fog. In children, you got ADHD and ADD. There's a lot of irritability in kids. Try and connect the dots and think what was eaten when and how much did I have of it. Like I say, become your own science project and try and figure out and connect the dots of your feeling of your symptoms and what was actually consumed and the timeline of it. Now that you know that it is such a long 72 hours, connect the dots. So you can think of it as like a full-blown gluten hangover. So like post-weekend feels that you're still feeling on Tuesday. It's not because you're getting old. Just think about what you had the weekend, and if you're having those like hangover feelings still and you're like halfway through the week, just pay attention a bit to it. I'm going to link a YouTube video below by Dr. Stephen Cabral where he explains gluten and when you consume gluten containing foods, what happens within the body. And we will go more in depth with regards to the gut-brain connection, because it's all wired. I know what you're thinking. My grandparents grew up in an era where they had gluten 3 times a day and they had a glass of milk with every meal for strong bones. A lot of research and science and things have been happening since way back when, and things have changed. Not only has our quality of soil changed, but the crossbreeding and genetically modified seeds of the grains have also taken place. And then not to mention the pesticides that we're putting on these grains that are wreaking havoc with regards to our gut and our gut microbiome. Because you're killing bacteria that are on the grains. What's happening when you're putting in your stomach that has gut? There's your answer. And just like your doctor promoted smoking was super healthy way back when, we know now, without being a specialist in the field, that smoking is not healthy. And the same goes for gluten. It's like a very black and white world. You either got like celiac or you don't have anything. And I'm not here to bash any conventional doctors. When it comes to conventional doctors, they believe it's black and white. So you've got celiac or you don't, and you can just chow down on bread and gluten and pastas, and if you're healthy, you shouldn't feel symptoms and stuff like that. Tell that to your immune system. So you might not have the digestive symptoms. You might not have the brain fog, headache symptoms. You haven't paid attention to the 72-hour thing yet, so pay attention to that. When you are consuming gluten, the immune system is pretty busy, and it's your level of tolerance that matters to you. This might be once a week, this might be twice a week, this might be 3 to 4 times a week, depending on how you are feeling and the symptoms that you are experiencing. You can then start putting together a bit of a plan of how your week should roughly look, that you don't feel iffy, because that's the whole point. You want to feel great, you don't want to not feel great. And if you do it once or twice a week and you feel that third time a week is too much, then you know your tolerance for the week is once or twice, and go with that. Might be more a little bit later on in life, might be a little bit less, but for now, be your own science project. So we have chatted about like conventional medicine and doctors loving to say like you've got celiac or you just don't, and that's not true. So you got celiac, and then you got your wheat allergies, and then you got your non-celiac gluten sensitivity, and then also your tolerance level. In that department, you got a high, a moderate, or a low reaction to it. So I can't stress enough the topic of try and figure things out yourself. People do elimination diets, and I can do a whole video on that on its own, but it boils down to how you feel and your reaction to gluten. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it if you can like and subscribe. It'll really support my channel. If there's any topics or anything that it was a bit unclear, please pop a comment below and I can just make a whole video about it. I'm trying to cover all the hot topic trends that are out there. I mean, keto, we're gonna get onto that, and we're just now busy with gluten, and then like vegans not eating protein. There's so many topics that have come through, but let's focus on gluten. Like I say, it's a 3-part series, so I've just broken it up a bit so it's a bit more digestible, mind the pun, that you can understand. And until the next video.